all you cool cats and kittens. It's Jake Clip here with you another video. Actually one that's brought to you by a lovely subscriber who wanted to know what are the top mistakes to avoid when starting ESO for new players, returning players. Let's jump into it with my first thing that you should always avoid, and that is understanding attribute points and putting attribute points into the wrong thing. Now, let's talk about attribute points. So originally when the game first came out, it was very Skyrim-esque. You know, you put an attribute point in, you gain more magicka, health, or stamina. That's not necessarily the case. So because everything is scaled, level 10 is scaled to a 160, which is scaled to an 810, you're not increasing your magicka per se, you're increasing the ratio of your attributes towards it. When you put from like go to 3 to 4, 4 to 5, you're actually taking points away from your health and stamina. Now, is that a bad thing? It is not a bad thing because your damage is calculated by two numbers, your spell damage or your weapon damage, and then with your max magicka and your max stamina. So most builds, if you're a mag DPS, is all magicka, stamina, all stamina. It's very straightforward, and rarely do you put points into health unless you're a tank build. But then I would recommend kind of looking into some different tank builds to see, because sometimes they also put points in stamina. But if you're DPS, it's super easy, magicka or stamina, and do not worry about trying to figure out some sort of magical calculation in your head as to how much you need. I can tell you that the bare minimum health, which with a buff food is more than enough that you will need for certainly any solo PvE content, and more than enough also for most PvP content, depending on what you're trying to do. My other kind of tip along this line is don't sleep on buff food. I know a lot of people are intimidated by buff food, but if you're grinding PvP things, it's mid-year mayhem right now. Do not feel that you can't use buff food. Do not feel it's too much of an investment. But with Sugar Skulls on Xbox can sell anywhere from $450 to $900 each, and you get 2 hours of them. You can see the stat increase that I'm getting from them. That is a lot. And don't sleep on it. There's other ones you could use too, depending on your build, but I'm sure if you know what buff food to use per your build, you kind of already know how buff food works. Also, this is a good tip to point out, don't sleep on potions either. Even if you're like me and you just use the fucking ones that you get a whole bunch of from playing every goddamn day. It's 183 try potions, you can make them too. I'm just going through the ones that I have in reserves because I have like 2,000 of them. Don't sleep on potions, they're great. They give you actual buffs too, which I will show you, that can be very useful for PvE content and PvP content. So not only am I getting back these resources, I'm also getting major fortitude, major intellect, major endurance. And these aren't even the ones that I've crafted. So I've actually experimenting a little bit. So this one actually gives me health recovery, magicka, and major intellect at the same time. So don't sleep on your alchemy ingredients. Which is a good kind of segue too into my next point, which is do not sleep on the stuff that you pick up in the overworld. Everything in your craft bag, everything, is used for something. And that something will obviously vary in value, but everything in here is good. Whether it is a simple, like for example, when people level up their magicka, they might be stuck at proficiency level 3, and they might need some cleansed water to get faster XP. They may need Columbine, which is actually super valuable currently because of the people using it to make a whole bunch of ingredients or provisioning things. Super valuable. And it's also used very popularly in potions. Everything in here, everything has value. I'm not going to go through everything, but you could not find something in here that does not have value. It's always worth at least a little something, especially Heartwood and Mundane Runes. Do not sell them to people who are just out and about in global chat being like, oh, I'll buy, this for 50 gold each. Don't listen to them. They're undercutting you by probably about 25% of its total value. Don't fall into that trap. And also, while I have you and we're looking at this, your items that are less than level 160 have value. And they can have value in two ways. They can have value in that they're valuable to deconstruct, which is the example for jewelry, and certain purple items too, like if you wanted to deconstruct a whole bunch of purple chest plates or chests or swords that are purple. But, for example, one Zircon plate, which is 10 of these combined, is worth 30k currently on Xbox NA and probably a comparable amount on other servers. Which means that every 10 to 20 Purple necklaces that you deconstruct, you can be getting 30k gold, no matter if they're level 3 purple necklaces, level 20 purple necklaces. That's why you see people in the Alakir Desert occasionally buying them for such high value. Your materials also can have a decent amount of value. That's because they're tied to furnishing items. Certain furnishing items require you to give up, certain things like, maybe dragon bones and flint, all sorts of random shit. The game has a lovely way to incorporate new recipes with previously existing items. Same with your provisioning recipe stuff. Always keep your Perez juice. Always keep your game. Most of this other stuff I would recommend too. Obviously your perfect row because they make it stand out. But don't assume that just because an item's white, it's not valuable. This is all valuable. Everything here has a decent value to it, or at least is worth holding on to. I know that for people who don't have ESO Plus, this can be a bit of a bitch. My recommendation to you is really utilize either your bank and then buy as many bank space upgrades as you can. And if you need to and you can, just take 10 friends and utilize a guild bank. A guild bank can hold 500 slots. So you get 5 to 10 trusted friends together, maybe even alt accounts if you need to. I know people who've done that on Xbox. You can create as many Xbox Live accounts as you want, and they'll be for free as long as you have a home Xbox tied to your Xbox. They will all have Xbox Live Gold for free. You can basically give yourself 10 extra slots. I know also some people who have characters, they make as many characters as you can on the home screen and they just chuck items on there. And that's pretty much what that's their whole purpose in life, is just to hold on to those items. Now, let's talk a little bit about research. This is probably the biggest mistake that I see people make, is they sleep on research. Now let's talk about why people sleep on research. And that's because they don't understand how transmutation works. How does transmutation work? Well, basically, you take your thing to a transmute station. Now, let's say you just did a super hard trial, but you got the set that you needed. You got False Gods Devoted, you got Perfected Reliquin, you got something that you really want to use, but it's got a stupid-ass trait on it. And you're thinking to yourself, well, I could always run it again, or I could wait. No. All you need to do is have the proper trait researched ahead of time, and you can use 25 transmute crystals, which you get from doing daily content, either your Cyrodiil, your daily dungeons, etc., and you can just transmute it. It's as easy as that. And if you're playing the Mid-Year Mayhem event, you'll know that you can get transmute crystals pretty frequently. So let's talk about what you should be researching. So I'm actually going to skip over the woodworking stuff, and we're actually going to go up to the clothing station and talk about what exactly you should be researching to kind of make things easier. And let's talk about the time period too and how research works. So research actually scales off of how many things per specific item you have researched in that specific thing. So for example, we're looking at a jerkin and robe. Now the trait progress you'll see is 8 days, 18 hours, and that looks like that's absolutely horrific. You're like, well, I don't have all that fucking free time on my hand. And you're right, you don't. So what you want to do is, if you're a PvE player, you're going to start learning every single piece of divines that you can across all your armor pieces. You can see that I've started to do that even on the ones that I haven't, even on medium armor for this character, which I haven't even done. This is never going to use medium armor. That should be around 4 for your beginning, and researching them. If it's level 20 or level 160, it makes zero difference. All you need is for the research, and that's it. And then your second one should be about 8 hours. So if you start with Divines, then go to Impen, and then probably Sturdy is probably the next best one to go to. And then if you wanted to make yourself training gear, you could always go to training, but after that it really doesn't matter a whole lot. Just focus on getting as many as you can. There's passive perks, as you can see I'm researching 3 things at once. You could be able to research 3 things at once. So if you see a little magnifying glass next to something, which I should have an example of here. I have to go to... I'll just put a picture of it on screen so I don't have to look for one. I don't want to take up too much of your time. So basically, if you see this symbol with a magnifying glass next to it, that means that you can research that item. Another thing that people sleep on every day is that they do not upgrade their mount every day. Every 20 hours, you can upgrade your mount. Why is that good? Well, most people don't do it for the plain and simple fact that they don't want to. They forget about it. They feel like they're not tied to this character. And they feel like there's not much of a difference. But is a huge difference. As you can see, I'm now up to 60% speed, 60 extra carrying capacity spots, and stamina. Now, stamina is pretty garbage. You can even read the description. Who cares how long it takes for you to get dismounted? You want speed if you're in PvP, or you really want to go places faster, or you can utilize carrying capacity. But also, my other tip, it's not necessarily a mistake that players make, but if you have the assault skill line, the second one down. Now, granted, you only get this by just do 2 battlegrounds, and you should unlock this skill. You can get rapid maneuvering. This character doesn't have it, but I can tell you that if you look at it, and you can utilize this while you're riding your mount. So I'll actually even purchase it just to show you what this would look like. And this is actually a great tip for players who just want to go fast. As you can see, I am going at the speed of light so fast, and I'm actually probably going to kill myself from fall damage. That's the type of speed that you can hit. Even with, I know I have 60% speed, but even as a new player, you can be getting to that levels of speed pretty quickly, and that's super helpful for Cyrodiil, because if you look at Cyrodiil, when it renders, you'll notice that there's a lot of distance between everything. And most of your Cyrodiil experience is going to boil down to you running from Chalman to Blue Road and then down to Elysia. That is the Cyrodiil experience. And this is a great tip to avoid the Cyrodiil experience. This also works with running. And there's even items too, like Coward's Gear, Ring of the Wild Hunt, that could also make you faster. Being faster in this game makes the game so much easier. Another quick tip that I would say to avoid is do not spend your first 300 champion points. So you can see I have a couple that I haven't spent. So why am I saying not your first 300? And that's actually because your first 100 points you put into any green skill increases your max stamina. Any that you put into your blue skill increases your max magicka, and anything you put into red increases your max health. So I would say your first 300 points are super valuable, and that's why a lot of dungeons are locked until your champion point 300. You're like, why 300? The max armor cap is 160. What the fuck happens at 300? That's what happens at 300. So if you need to, you can always look up a guide on like Outcast HQ, and he'll tell you exactly what to point your attribute points into. And so that kind of wraps up everything that I wanted to talk about for this video. I know this was brought to you by one of the people who was a subscriber, saying that he wanted to know like some of the common pitfalls. So I'm actually streaming this on Twitch, and I'm going to upload it to YouTube. And if you guys have any other suggestions, anything you want to see, I'm probably going to maybe do a Telvar crystal video if you guys want to see that. I know that you probably have a lot of Telvar crystals because of the Mid-Year Mayhem event. Maybe you have a lot of Crown Mimic stones and you want to see how to turn that into gold. Or maybe you just want another common pitfalls traps to fall into for new players. Just let me know what you want to see, and I will add it in, and I will make it into the next video. But other than that, I will see you in the next one. Peace.